Hi, this is Anthony, parent of IRS Medic, and I want to be honest with you. Sometimes, as tax attorneys, we are in a tough situation that we are aware of when a client is doing something wrong, but sometimes if we alert the IRS to that they did something wrong, the IRS will come down and hammer them significantly, even in violation of its own programs. And this is what's really problems because it can get difficult to give people the proper advice. And here's a fantastic example of it. It's a case that just had to be litigated for the IRS to kind of get the message. And the case is I do have my special Polish skills here. I grew up next to a Polish church, and let me see if I can pronounce his name. It's Krzysztof Rzyniewski. Rezniski. There we go. That's probably a little closer. And this is what happened in this case. Christoph is a cop in the U.S. He grew up in Poland. He emigrated to the U.S. And then his mom won the Polish lottery. And being a great mom, she decided to make a gift to Christoph and sent the money to her back in 2010 and 2011. And Christoph asked his tax preparer, an enrolled agent, that is someone who took a very, very difficult test administered by the IRS to make sure that they were qualified to understand the tax laws and give advice to people. Unfortunately, Christoph's enrolled agent gave him the wrong advice and said he didn't need to do anything. But the fact is, he needed to file something called a Form 3520 to report his foreign inheritance or foreign gift from his mom. Now, there's no tax due with this whatsoever. No tax due. Just got to pay. You got to fill out that form. Now, he discovered this error in 2018, and like a lot of people, they discovered after the fact as more people are becoming more aware of their international compliance. He found out he was in error, found an attorney to represent him, and he did something called a DIRF. This is what we call it. Stands for Delinquent Informational Return Forms. And if you're missing a form, you have no tax compliance, hey, just send it in with a reasonable cause, and the matter will be put to rest. And of course, that's not at all what happened. Rather, the IRS, after Christoph filled out, he qualified for the DIRF 100%. I agreed with his attorney. I would have done the same thing. The IRS soiled itself so spectacularly, like we've seen. The IRS went ahead and assessed $207,500 in penalties for something that there was no tax non-compliance with, where he had a reasonable cause to do so. That represented 25% of the gift. Isn't that crazy? Again, no tax compliance. So Christoph appealed. Then the IRS lost the appeal. That's very common. Things just go to places and no one knows it is. Then under the appeal, the IRS lowered it to $41,000. And, maybe that's where a lot of people will leave off. But God bless Christoph. He did not. He kept going. He actually filed a claim for a refund. His attorney did so. He filed a claim for a refund. And guess what? The IRS lost. And I want to give a special shout out to his attorney. It looks like Joseph Viola was on this case of Philadelphia. He did a fantastic job. I love it. He did follow the processes and got this penalty gone. Thank goodness, because we have some better law now when the IRS has to look at the risk of litigation. Mr. Viola gave us a great one we all could reference. So thank him so much. So the question I want to ask here, and this is sort of where I was thinking about this morning, and this is sort of as I'm dealing with my own cases of dealing with group managers and the like, and all the penalty coordinators, and knowing full well what they're up to, that they find people who make a voluntary disclosure, right? People they would never find any other way. Because seriously, in Christoph's case, this was a transfer that occurred in 2010 and 2011. If he never filed that 3520, the IRS would never know. They would never find it. So he's the one who's volunteering it, and then that's when the IRS hammers, which is somewhat obnoxious. And you might find yourself in such a situation. You want to be careful about what you disclose to the IRS and how you do it, because they are looking at people who volunteer and assume the IRS is going to be reasonable as their top target, because they have them. They have them. They disclose, and now they're going to hammer them. So the question I want to ask all of you is, does this sound like the actions of an agency that has its act together? And I was actually reminded of my 7th grade teacher. He was a good teacher, but every day he'd find someone to somebody would do something small, and he would hammer them, and he would humiliate them in front of the whole class, and he'd kick them out of there. and it was incredibly disruptive. And I was always on anxiety. Everyone's anxiety. Someday it's going to be yours. And my day came up, and I was able to get out of it. I was looking out the window, and it was snowing out. And I was like, oh, it's snowing out. And I heard his voice, Mr. Parent, what is so interesting outside? I'm like, oh man, here it comes. Here it comes. I'm going to be humiliating for looking outside and seeing the first snow of the season. This guy's going to brutalize me. Luckily, I sidestepped it. Luckily, other people started looking outside at the snow, and now he lost control. So the question was that bullying and intimidation that he did, he was a good teacher. But was that somebody in control? No, it really wasn't. And that we know bullies are people who don't have control over their emotions and feeling. And bullies are people who often feel a lot of fear, and they're cowardly, and they find the easy targets to beat up on. So, when we see things like this, you have to wonder, an agency that says one thing and does the complete opposite, right? We have an agency, the IRS says, oh, come clean with your voluntary disclosures and all your unreported things, and, we'll go easy on you because you know what? If we catch you, we're going to hammer you. But you see, sometimes when you make a disclosure and show them things, they hammer you. This is what I want to leave you with. I've met with a lot of people over the years, and I'm very close to New York City, and we've had a lot of, that's ground zero for a lot of interesting things that happen. This was about 6 years ago. I went down to the city, and I met with someone, and he told me a very interesting story. He said, with no doubt what he was doing, he was involved in an elaborate tax evasion scheme with the help of a foreign bank. No question, this bank absolutely helped him evade taxes, because if he opened up an account in this foreign bank, they would lend him money and send money back and forth, and you couldn't tell which was which. So he was able to, and I'll tell you what he did. He was actually a diamond merchant. He was actually able to avoid about something like $10 million in penalties. And talking to him, like, okay, well, what happened? Why are you talking to me? He's like, oh, I don't need you for criminal representation. I'm like, okay, I'm not a criminal attorney, so that's good. So why do you want to talk to me? He's like, oh, well, I have some civil penalties I want to take care of. I said, well, what happened at a whole tax evasion thing that you were talking about? Oh, well, anyway, what happened there was the IRS indicted someone else there. And they were about to indict me, but they said, oh, you know what? We already have one of these cases, and it's really not worth our effort to indict you for the same thing. So we're not going to get any more press by indicting a second person of the same scheme. So even though they had him, they had everything they kind of needed to convict him of some serious tax evasion that would put him away for 3-5 years, even on a plea, because the amount was pretty insane. But the IRS Criminal Investigation Division just said, it's not worth it. Because here's the thing, they work by fear and intimidation. So again, what's the intimidation of getting the second person with this? And it wasn't there. And so they intentionally dropped the case. And so you got to be laughing. Now, of course, during COVID, they dropped a ton of indictments. A lot of people got away with it in 2020. And my friends who are criminal defense attorneys, it was a bad year for them because they had no new clients. The IRS just dropped it. It's like, oh, this is too hard. COVID's here. We're not going to indict anyone. So they let a whole bunch of people go. And then, this last story that I have, and some of you may have heard it before, but I have a friend who was a corporate counsel at a very, very, very large multinational corporation. He told me in the 12 years that he was there, they were never audited, never. And it's simply because the IRS doesn't have the resources. So this is what I would want to leave you with, is like, when we see the IRS do these things, it's really, really obnoxious. But this could also be the symptom of a very, very weak IRS that's flailing around, can't get it to act together. But here's the ultimate thing. You got to take it seriously, and you want to know where this is going to go. And be careful about what you tell them, because they do want to use it against you. This is Anthony, parent of IRS Medic, and I thank you for watching. And I'm curious if anyone has their stories of bullying the IRS wants to share. And I think as we expose more of these stories, the underlying message here is the IRS just isn't in control. Thanks again for watching.